Intelligence failures are often remembered as singular moments, a missed warning, an unexpected attack, a collapse that appears sudden and catastrophic. In hindsight, these events are framed as sharp breaks from what came before, as if failure arrived all at once. This framing is misleading. Intelligence failures rarely occur in a single moment. They unfold gradually through a sequence of small decisions, assumptions, and interpretations that accumulate over time. By the time a failure becomes visible, it has usually been developing quietly for months or years. The idea of sudden failure is appealing because it offers a clear point of blame. If failure happens all at once, responsibility can be assigned to a specific report, a single analyst, or a missed signal. The reality is more uncomfortable. Intelligence failure is usually systemic rather than individual. Most intelligence systems are designed to handle uncertainty, not eliminate it. They work by continuously updating assessments as new information arrives. This process is inherently incremental. Judgments shift slowly. Confidence levels rise or fall gradually. Rarely does a single piece of information overturn an entire analytical framework on its own. This means that failure often begins not with a dramatic error, but with reasonable interpretations that later prove incomplete. Early signals are ambiguous. Developments appear consistent with existing expectations. Warnings, when issued, are qualified rather than absolute. At each stage, the system appears to function normally. The problem emerges when small uncertainties are repeatedly resolved in the same direction. When ambiguous information is interpreted in ways that reinforce existing assumptions. When alternative explanations are acknowledged but gradually deprioritized. Over time, this creates a narrowing of perspective. Analysts do not ignore contrary information outright. They often incorporate it, but with lower confidence or reduced emphasis. Competing explanations remain present, but they lose influence as dominant narratives become more familiar and internally coherent. This process is rarely conscious. It is not driven by deception or negligence. It is driven by the human need to impose structure on complexity. Intelligence organizations are staffed by professionals trained to be skeptical, but they are still subject to cognitive constraints. As a result, intelligence failure is usually the product of cumulative judgment rather than singular oversight. By the time failure becomes visible, reversing course requires not just new information, but a willingness to reconsider a long chain of prior conclusions. This is difficult, especially when earlier judgments appeared reasonable at the time. Understanding intelligence failure therefore requires shifting focus away from moments and toward processes. Failure is not a switch that flips. It is a gradual erosion of uncertainty management, often invisible until consequences emerge. One reason intelligence failures develop gradually is that early warning rarely looks like warning in real time. Signals that later appear obvious are often indistinguishable from routine background activity when they first emerge. Most environments monitored by intelligence agencies generate constant streams of information. Political rhetoric, military movements, economic fluctuations, and diplomatic signaling occur continuously. Within this flow, genuine indicators of change must be distinguished from noise. Early indicators are usually weak. They lack clarity, consistency, or corroboration. They may contradict other reporting. They often resemble false alarms that have occurred many times before. Because of this, early warning is rarely decisive. Analysts do not encounter clear signals announcing impending failure. They encounter small deviations that could mean many things. At this stage, existing analytical frameworks play a powerful role. New information is interpreted through the lens of what is already believed to be true. This is not laziness. It is a necessary cognitive shortcut. Without frameworks, analysis would be impossible. The problem arises when these frameworks harden. As assessments are updated incrementally, each revision builds on previous judgments. Confidence grows not because certainty has increased dramatically, but because conclusions have been reinforced repeatedly. Over time, alternative explanations begin to feel less plausible, even if they remain technically possible. This creates a form of analytical inertia. When contradictory information appears, it is often explained away rather than fully re-examined. Sources are questioned. Timing is scrutinized. Context is invoked to maintain continuity with existing assessments. Each step is defensible on its own. Collectively, they can delay recognition of genuine change. Another factor is institutional rhythm. Intelligence agencies operate on reporting cycles. Assessments are produced on schedules. Revisions require justification. Sudden, dramatic shifts in judgment are disruptive and often resisted unless evidence is overwhelming. This does not mean analysts suppress warning. It means that warning tends to be gradual and qualified. Strong language is avoided unless confidence is high. As a result, warnings that later appear insufficient may have been appropriate given the information available at the time. Failure, then, is not the absence of warning, but the slow accumulation of judgments that underestimate risk. By the time clarity emerges, the system has often invested heavily in its existing view of the situation. Changing course becomes psychologically and institutionally difficult. This is why intelligence failures feel sudden to outsiders. The internal process has been unfolding quietly long before the outcome becomes visible. Another reason intelligence failures rarely happen all at once is that intelligence systems are designed to be conservative. They prioritize stability over volatility and continuity over rapid reinterpretation. This conservatism is intentional. If intelligence assessments shifted dramatically every time new information appeared, decision-makers would be overwhelmed. Constant reversals would undermine confidence and make planning impossible. As a result, intelligence organizations emphasize incremental adjustment. This creates resilience against false alarms, but it also slows response to genuine change. Analysts are trained to ask whether new developments represent a meaningful departure from established patterns. This question takes time to answer. It requires comparison across multiple sources and periods. It requires waiting to see whether changes persist. In fast-moving situations, this can create lag. Another contributing factor is division of labor. Intelligence agencies are complex organizations. Collection, analysis, and dissemination are often separated. Information passes through multiple layers before influencing assessments. At each stage, uncertainty can be reduced or amplified. Context can be added or lost. Nuance can be preserved or simplified. None of this requires error to occur. It is a natural consequence of scale. Additionally, intelligence assessments are designed to support policy, not replace it. Analysts are cautious about overstating conclusions because they understand the weight their judgments carry. Overwarning can be as damaging as underwarning if it leads to unnecessary escalation. This creates an asymmetry. It is often safer institutionally to be cautious than to be alarmist. Over time, this caution can accumulate. When multiple analysts independently exercise restraint, the collective effect may be a delayed recognition of risk. Again, this is not a failure of competence, it is a structural trade-off. When intelligence failure finally becomes visible, it is often described as a breakdown. In reality, it is the delayed consequence of many small, reasonable decisions interacting over time. This is why post-failure investigations often struggle to identify a single point of error. Each judgment made sense in context. Each decision was defensible. The failure emerges only when viewed retrospectively as a whole. Understanding this dynamic is essential. It reveals that intelligence failure is not an anomaly within an otherwise functioning system. It is a potential outcome of the system operating as designed under conditions of deep uncertainty. Recognizing that intelligence failures develop gradually changes how they should be evaluated. Instead of asking why intelligence did not predict a specific event, the more meaningful question is how uncertainty was managed over time. Failure often reflects a breakdown in reassessment rather than initial judgment. Early assessments may have been reasonable. The problem arises when new information fails to sufficiently challenge existing conclusions. This suggests that the most important safeguards against failure are not better secrets or faster collection, but institutional habits of doubt, mechanisms that force reassessment, processes that elevate alternative explanations, cultures that reward analytical humility. Some intelligence organizations attempt to address this through red teaming, structured analytic techniques, and dissent channels. These tools are designed to slow consensus and surface uncomfortable possibilities. They do not eliminate failure. They reduce its likelihood. Even with these safeguards, intelligence failure cannot be eradicated entirely. As long as intelligence operates under uncertainty, some judgments will be wrong. Some risks will be underestimated. Some changes will be recognized too late. This does not mean intelligence is ineffective. It means its value lies in reducing uncertainty, not eliminating surprise. Understanding this helps explain why intelligence success is often invisible. When systems work, failure does not occur, and nothing dramatic happens. When they do not, failure appears sudden, even though it was gradual. The danger lies in misunderstanding this dynamic. If intelligence is expected to provide certainty, it will always disappoint. If it is understood as a tool for managing uncertainty over time, its limitations become clearer and its contributions more realistic. Intelligence failure rarely happens all at once. It unfolds quietly through accumulation rather than collapse. Recognizing this is essential not only for evaluating intelligence agencies, but for understanding decision-making in complex systems more broadly. This file was never meant to be noticed. This was shadow archives.